Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, on today's show, it is finally time for me to give my official regular season predictions. First, what do I think the Tennessee Titans record is going to be in 2022? Not sure you guys are going to like it. Then I'm going to do some official statistical predictions. How many touchdowns, how many yards will the Titans skill position players finish with? And then finally, my general NFL predictions. Who are going to be the playoff teams in each conference and who will win this year's Super Bowl? Giving you guys my official regular season predictions on today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Titans fans, it is time for my official regular season predictions. Like I said, we are going to start with my prediction for the Titans regular season record. We're also going to talk Titans MVP, Titans Offensive Player of the Year, Titans Defensive Player of the Year, and Titans Rookies of the Year to start the show. Before we dive into that, want to let you guys know that today's episode of Locked On Titans is presented by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. Also want to thank you guys for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen every day. If this is your first ever listen to the Locked On Titans podcast, make sure you subscribe on whatever platform that you do stream. I am going to be putting out daily, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content for free on all platforms all year long. That includes on the Locked On Titans YouTube channel. Subscribe there, smash the notification bell, and throw a thumbs up on the video if you're watching on YouTube right now. The show is free, and that thumbs up goes a long way to help supporting the channel. With all of that said, do want to remind you guys you can get my instant analysis during games or just at any time on Twitter at TicTacTitans. That's also where I'm doing the majority of my film work as well. And you can check out the show Facebook page at Locked On Titans Pod. Tomorrow, we will have our crossover Thursday episode with Patricia Traynor, the host of Locked On Giants. After that, I will have my official game preview, and then I'll have a special Friday night live at the end of the week doing a little Tennessee Titans merchandise giveaway for you guys, and I'll just take some Q&A questions from the YouTube comments and have a fun little Friday night live session, which I'll probably incorporate into the season as a bonus episode for you guys every single week. So very excited about the things to come. Make sure you stay locked in to the Locked On Titans podcast, where it's your team every day. But let's get into my official predictions. And I know that was a lot of housekeeping stuff up front, but it's the beginning of the season, and I want to let all of you new listeners know exactly what's coming and exactly what you can expect from the Locked On Titans podcast. So time to get into my regular season record prediction. And as I said up front, the reality is a lot of you guys are not going to like this. You're going to be upset about what I predicted. You're going to jump in my comments and tell me just how wrong that I am. Well, I hope I am wrong about my predictions, because it's been tough. Now, I could get on here and I could just give you guys pure optimism. I could be overly optimistic all the time. But longtime listeners know I'm not going to do those things. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm going to give you my real opinion of what I really think is going to happen. And if you want to come dunk on me when I'm wrong and things go well for the Titans, then great. But I'm not going to lie to you guys just to make everyone happy. I have to tell the truth when I get on here. And the truth is, for me, I had the Titans going 9-8. I had them going 10-7 after the schedule released. What has changed? Well, I'm not super impressed with the wide receiver group. The offensive line, in my opinion, is not better than last year. And the Titans just lost Harold Landry. Now, maybe I saw some comments on Twitter today saying the Titans are stacked at outside linebacker. Harold Landry's loss won't matter. What? I know that last year we got into a big next man up mentality, and you have to, but you can't just say guys like Harold Landry don't matter. Like, what are we talking about here? What if Harold Landry didn't matter and you could just replace him with Rashad Weaver and Ola Adeni, then why would the Titans give Harold Landry $85 million? Star players matter. They matter. Harold Landry matters. And I know that you guys don't want to hear this again, but A.J. Brown matters. The Titans lost both those guys from either side of the ball. And with an improved AFC, and the Broncos are much better. I expect the Chargers to be better. The Titans have to play the AFC West. They have a first-place schedule. The AFC got better. A lot better than last year. So that's how I can say logically, yeah, the Titans went 12-5 and won the AFC last year, but it's going to be much tougher to win the AFC this year than it was last year. And you could say the Titans will be less injured than last year. Well, I don't think that the healthy Titans on offense are going to be good enough. And then now that you lose Landry from the defense, I still think the Titans defense will be good, but I don't know if they'll be that elite top 5 team that we were hoping the defense could be without Landry. And I've explained schematically why I think Landry is so important to what the Titans do. So with all of that in mind, I have the Titans going at 9-8. That's how I feel. I've been wrestling with it, trying to find ways to be more optimistic. But I see them at 9-8. Now, where they fall within the AFC, whether they make the playoffs and all that, I'll discuss at the end of the show when I talk about those general NFL predictions. But right now, I have the Titans going 9-8. I had them at 10-7. I was going to stick at 10-7. But after the Landry loss and after what I've seen in camp, I simply can't stick at 10-7. I had to go to 9-8. So let's hope I'm wrong, guys. Let's hope I'm wrong. As for the MVP of the season, I got it being Derrick Henry. I'll talk about the actual stats that I think he's going to put up in our next conversation, but I think Derrick Henry will be the Titans MVP. I think Jeffrey Simmons will be the defensive player of the year for the Titans. I think the offensive rookie of the year will be Treylon Burks, and the defensive rookie of the year will be Roger McCreary. So that's how I see the superlatives, you could say, and where I see the Titans record at the end of the day. So I know you guys are throwing tomatoes at your screen right now, and I hear it, but I'm worried about the O-line. I'm worried about the wide receivers. And without Harold Landry and A.J. Brown as star players on either side of the ball that really matter, I worry that the Titans don't have the game breakers and big moments that they've had to win them games in previous seasons. So 9-8 is my official prediction. We're going to move forward into my statistical predictions. I'm going to go through the skill position players on offense. We'll talk Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, the wide receiver group, and Austin Hooper. Before we get into that, though, do want to tell you guys a little bit more about our title sponsor from PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. You can go to PrizePicks.com. You can go to the PrizePicks app. Here's what you're doing, guys. Every week, PrizePicks is going to give a projection on a player. Derrick Henry, 1.5 touchdown runs. Ryan Tannehill, 2.5 touchdown passes. Treylon Burks, 4.5 catches. Basically, PrizePicks sets a projection for a player in a certain category, and then all you got to do is say, is it going to be more or is it going to be less? So every week you create a lineup. It's about 2 players to 5 players, however many you want in that range, and you go more or less this, more or less on this, more or less on this, and you have a chance to win up to 10 times your money. I mean, this is what daily fantasy is supposed to be. You're not competing against 1,000 other entries or going with these weird salary cap structures. It's just, hey, PrizePicks has this projection. Is it going to be more? Is it going to be less? That's about as simple as you can make it. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com right now to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match on up to $100 when you use the promo code LOCKED ON. So once again, that's promo code LOCKED ON at PrizePicks.com. You get a 100% deposit match up to $100. So if you deposit $100, you get a free $100. If you deposit $50, you get a free $50. Don't forget, use that promo code Locked On to sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100 at PrizePicks.com or on the PrizePicks app. Titans fans, I am giving out my official regular season predictions on today's show. If you guys are still with me and you've thrown all your tomatoes at the screen for my regular season prediction, now I want to get into some statistical predictions for the Titans. How will the offensive skill position players actually produce this year? Before I get into it, I do want to thank you guys again for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen every day. If you're mad about my regular season prediction, make sure you subscribe so you can come back later and tell me how dumb I am when the Titans go undefeated and go to the Super Bowl this year. But either way, let's dive right into these statistical projections. I'm going to start with Derrick Henry. I said he was going to be the Tennessee Titans MVP. Now, for these statistical projections and predictions, I'm not going to get in the weeds of getting too hairy down to the number. I want to give certain benchmarks where I expect these players to hit. And for Derrick Henry coming back, I expect Derrick Henry to have a little bit of a lesser workload than we've seen from him, as they want to prolong him and make sure they get the most out of him throughout his career. That's why I am not projecting Henry to go over 1,500 yards like we may think, or maybe an idea in your head. I think Haskins is going to get some work. I think that Dontrell Hilliard is going to get a lot of work, as well as the complimentary back. I want to see Derrick Henry over 1,200 yards with double-digit touchdowns. Those are my benchmarks that I think Derrick Henry clears. I think he gets over 1,200 yards. I think he ends up around 1,275, 1,300 in there. And I want to see 10 to 12 touchdowns on the ground for Derrick Henry. That's what I want to see. And I think that is an incredibly productive year for most running backs. And I think it would be a good sign that Henry is healthy and that the Titans aren't running him into the ground, so that he's fresh at the end of the year, doesn't have an injury, and can be good for 2 more years afterwards as well. That's what that's about right now. So over 1,200 rushing yards, double-digit touchdowns. I think that'd be a great year for Derrick Henry. As for Ryan Tannehill, I think that Tannehill will be right around where he was last year, is what I'm thinking, with one major difference. I think Tannehill will throw for about 3,800 yards. I think he'll throw for about 25 touchdowns. But where I really see a difference is I think he's going to throw less than 10 interceptions. I think he's going to get back to being smart with the ball. I think the Titans have to be a little bit healthier around Tannehill, which shouldn't leave him throwing balls to Des Fitzpatrick and Cody Hollister all season, although the Titans put Hollister on the 53-man roster, so what the heck, who knows? But I just think Tannehill will be better with the ball this year. I think the Titans will run more heavy tight end sets to give him more blockers so they can have some more time to make accurate throws. I don't think that Tannehill is all of a sudden going over 4,000 yards or throwing for 35 touchdowns. I think he'll have a solid year statistically, over 3,800 passing yards, 25-plus touchdowns, but I think he'll be under 10 interceptions. To the wide receiver group, I think Robert Woods has around 75 catches. I think he catches a lot of passes for the Titans, but he's not the most efficient guy. He's not going to have these huge yard per catch numbers. I think he's going to catch short passes, intermediate range, move the chains for the Titans. I think Robert Woods goes for about 75 catches, 700 yards, about 4 touchdowns. I don't think he's going to be a huge red zone threat for the Titans, but I think he's going to be a chain mover for them over the middle of the field on short passes. So 75 catches, 700 yards, 4 touchdowns. As for Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, I think he is going to be a guy who has a very efficient line. I think he catches less passes than Robert Woods, but ends up with maybe a little bit more yardage because he's going to catch some passes downfield. He's going to make some contested catches on some longer throws with his big-bodied athleticism. So I got NWI at about 60 catches, about 750 yards, and about 6 touchdowns. I think he's going to be better in the red zone. He's He's going to have a higher yards per catch, even if he has less catches than Robert Woods. Now we get to the rookies. Treylon Burks, I said, would be the offensive rookie of the year for the Titans at the beginning of the show. I think that he's a guy who maybe doesn't have as many catches as NWI or Robert Woods, but has some explosive plays for the Titans, and he heats up later in the season. I got Burks at about 45 catches for 550 yards and 5 touchdowns. Again, I think it's going to take some time for Treylon Burks. I think he's going to miss some games, being banged up with injury. But I think 45 catches, 550 yards, and 5 touchdowns seems like a solid number for Treylon Burks to just have a good rookie season. As for Kyle Phillips, I have more concerns about Kyle Phillips consistently winning than maybe some other people do. He is a smaller wide receiver. It may take him some time to fully blossom into that route Jedi that we're expecting him to be. I think dealing with physical press coverage at the line of scrimmage could give Kyle Phillips some trouble early on. And then once he adjusts and later in the season, he'll settle down. That's kind of my feeling with both the rookies. So I have Kyle Phillips at about 35 catches, 400 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I think he'll be a solid option for the Titans, but it may take him some time to adjust to NFL physicality at the line of scrimmage. Outside of Kyle Phillips, looking at Austin Hooper, 60 catches, 600 yards, 5 touchdowns. I think Hooper will be a major contributing factor to the Titans this year. And if you look at all of those stats together, that gives Tannehill about 50 catches, 800 yards, and a couple of touchdowns that will be spread out throughout Hilliard, Henry, Haskins, Chigakonkwo, Jeff Swain, Josh Gordon, Racey McMath, Cody Hollister, Des Fitzpatrick, whoever else ends up being on the roster. I think about 50 catches, 800 yards, a couple touchdowns get spread out throughout the rest of those people. And all of that does add up to around my projections for Tannehill, about 3,800 yards, 25 some touchdowns. And that's where I'm expecting Ryan Tannehill to be. As for the defense, my expectation for the defense is they'll be top 5 in points per game. I think they'll be top 10 in yards per game allowed, and I think they'll have about 45 sacks. I think we got Simmons at double digits at 11, Autry at 6, Bud Dupree at 8, and then the rest of those sacks broken up between Weaver, Adaney, Anini, Tuska, some of the DBs like Molden, Ugo Amadi, Kevin Byard, the linebackers, David Long. See, here's my thing with the Titans defense. I think they'll still be really good, but I think for this team to be what we thought it was, the Titans defense needed to go to elite. They needed 50-plus sacks. They needed to be top 5 in yards and points per game. They needed to be amazing. One of the top 3 defenses in the NFL. And while I still think they'll be a good defense, I'm just not ready to say that they'll be able to make that leap on defense because they lose Harold Landry. And that's what it comes down to, is how much I believe Harold Landry was important to the defense. So again, hope I'm wrong. Maybe the Titans defense can still take that elite step, but without Harold Landry, I just think it's going to be hard to do. The Titans front 4 was what made them special. It's what flipped the switch for the Titans defense from one of the worst in the league to one of the better defenses in the league. It was the front 4. And now you lost, I think, the second most important piece of that and the most versatile piece that you had. So I'm just really down on the fact that the Titans are without Harold Landry. I think that's big. But we're going to move forward to my general NFL predictions. Before we do, just want to remind you guys, if you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you're depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. Let me introduce you to a new flavor. They have the cookie dough chunk puff. They have a light, chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, it's covered in 100% real chocolate with only 160 calories and a whopping 15 grams of protein. They're going to give you everything you want in a protein bar while also giving you everything that you want in a candy bar. So go to built.com right now. That's BUILT.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON15 and you'll get 15% off your order. Once again, that's promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off at built.com. BriteCo.com. Titans fans, we are going to cap off today's regular season prediction episode of the Locked On Titans podcast with my general NFL predictions. Who's going to make the playoffs? Who's going to win divisions? Who's going to be in the Super Bowl? Who's going to win the Super Bowl? NFL MVP and some other awards as well. Before we dive into my predictions there, do want to thank you guys for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen every day. Another reminder, tomorrow I will have my crossover event with Patricia Trainer from the Locked On Giants podcast. She is a GOAT. She is a legend in journalism as a pioneer for females in the industry. She is truly one of the best, and I'm so excited to have Patricia on to talk to you guys about the Giants, a team that we don't have a lot of history with. We don't talk about a lot, so it'll be good to get her side of the spectrum and what she's thinking about the Giants. Also, we'll have my game preview with my keys to victory, my players to watch, and then my Friday Night Live special that I'm doing this week, giving out some Titans merch and just taking your guys' questions. So a lot coming this week. On Sunday night, I'll have my official breakdown of the game up. Monday, we'll talk about all the lingering storylines. Wednesday is Rewatch Wednesday, where I break down the tape, and then it'll be time for another crossover Thursday with Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. So the season is here. It's time to get rolling. Make sure you stay locked in to the Locked On Titans podcast. But we'll start in the AFC. And now you guys are really going to get mad at me. It hurt to do this, but in the AFC North, I have the Baltimore Ravens. In the AFC East, I have the Buffalo Bills. I also have the Bills getting the 1 seed. In the AFC West, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. In the AFC South, I have the Indianapolis Colts. I have the Colts going 10-7. And I had the Titans originally going 10-7 and winning the tiebreaker. But now, I think there's a decent chance Indy might beat the Titans twice. Without Harold Landry, I'm just concerned. As I've explained. I explained all the reasons that I'm concerned. The O-line, the receiving core. Now without Landry, just some concerns there for me. And I hope that I'm wrong. I sure do hope that I'm wrong. But as for the wild card spots, I have the Broncos getting the wild card spot. I have the Bengals getting a wild card spot. And I have the Titans getting the final wild card spot at 9-8 over the Chargers, over the Dolphins, over the Steelers, over the Raiders. It's going to be tight, guys. I'm pretty nervous. I'm pretty scared. The Titans are going to have a good AFC record this year with a number 1 first place schedule. It's going to be tough to do, but I believe the Titans will win big games against big opponents. I do still believe that. So 9-8, winning a tiebreaker, getting into the playoffs as a wild card. I actually think that the Titans being a wild card may be a better thing for their chances of winning in the playoffs. What has a home game done for the Titans 2 years in a row? Nothing. So, yeah. Just saying, I think that there's a chance that the Titans are in a better spot because they're in the wild card than if they won their division. I think it's possible. They can get hot. They'll be playing hot down the stretch. So I hope that's the case. And that game, I believe it's week 15 or 16 against the Chargers in Los Angeles, will be incredibly, incredibly important. As for the NFC, Green Bay Packers in the north, Philadelphia Eagles in the east, Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the south, Los Angeles Rams in the west. I have the 49ers getting a wild card spot. I have the Vikings getting a wild card spot. And this one was tough between the Cowboys and the Cardinals, but I'll go with the Cowboys getting the final wild card spot. In the Super Bowl, I have the Buffalo Bills and the Los Angeles Rams. I have the Buffalo Bills winning the Super Bowl. It's their time. They deserve it. I have Josh Allen as MVP. I have Justin Jefferson as the Offensive Player of the Year. And I have Micah Parsons as the Defensive Player of the Year. So those are my official NFL general predictions. Again, I know you guys aren't going to be happy with them. Let me know in the comments how unhappy you are, and come back during the season to let me know how wrong I got it when the Titans go 17-0 and win the Super Bowl. But those are my official predictions. Wanted to get them on wax for you guys. That's going to do it for me today, folks. Crossover event is tomorrow. Make sure that you don't miss it. That's going to do it for me today, though. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.